you. That's Joe Miller, our musical director for tonight. I'm Valentina Gold, and I'm really happy to have you with us tonight for what is actually a world premiere, 200-year-old world premiere. And it's especially nice to see some friends from Ettrick and Hogg's homeland here with us this evening. So thank you for coming over the border to Edinburgh. So, in a sense, we're 200 years late for when this play should have been performed in August 1822. But I think in some ways that makes it even more special to be here tonight. I first read the play in the early 1990s, and I've wanted to see it live ever since I read it. Hearing it in rehearsal, and it is a rehearsed reading, so only one of us is a professional actor, so she says it's going to be unique, so that's the spirit I would like you to approach it in. But I must say that hearing it when we did rehearse it was something of a revelation, and particularly the songs, which are really very good. And I hope that James Hogg would be happy with what we're going to do with it tonight, which is in fact his approximate 252nd birthday. So we'll raise a glass to him slightly later on. In behalf of all of us who are in the cast, I'd like to thank the Scottish Poetry Library for making this possible. And I'd also like to thank the Tannahill Fund for the promotion of Scottish literature at the University of Glasgow, and the University of Stirling, who is going to hopefully mount this on their web pages early new year. What we're going to do is start off with a short orientation. It's very much a play of 1822, and I know some in the audience are very familiar with 1822, but perhaps others less so. So we're going to talk a little bit about it, myself and Kirsteen McCue, Professor at the University of Glasgow. And after we've done that, we're going to go into the play, which lasts about 50 minutes. And we're going to have about 10 minutes after that for questions and answers, and then we'll move downstairs and hopefully continue the discussion over a drink. So, in terms of the play being from 1822, I think it's important to say that it's very much of a moment, and as we were rehearsing it, I think we were all quite aware of the fact that there are definitely in-jokes here, and some of them you need to have been there at the time to get, but hopefully some are more obvious. It's kind of, I'm sort of thinking of it as a cross between a proto-pantomime and A Midsummer Night's Dream, but with Covenanters. Right. So it's got everything, as you can see. We've got Gaels, we've got Jacobites, we've got it all. So Hogg wrote this, and it was published when George IV arrived in Edinburgh on the 14th of August 1822, and we know that the King received a copy of it through Walter Scott, but as far as we know, it's never been performed. And it's quite interesting because a year earlier than that, during the coronation in London, Hogg had turned down an invitation, and he said it was impracticable to go because that great day in London is the next after St Boswell's Fair. I may not do it. So he clearly had his priorities right. But the 1822 visit, luckily, didn't clash with any major Borders agricultural events, so he was able to come. And he was present for the royal procession from Leith to Holyrood. And there's a description of it in Blackwood's magazine, which says that when Hogg first caught a sight of the King, we verily thought he would have leapt off the platform over the heads of 500 people into the King's coach. We stood prepared to intercept him in his flight. Now, I think once you've seen the play, you might suggest there's a different motivation for Hogg jumping at the King, but that's for you to decide. It's quite ambivalent, I think is the best way to put it. And Hogg was very well informed about what was going to happen on this occasion. He knew the people who were in charge of planning it, like Major General Stewart of Garth, who had published a sketch of the character, manner and present state of the Highlands in 1822, and of course he knew Walter Scott. And Scott's hints addressed to the inhabitants of Edinburgh and others in prospect of His Majesty's visit, also published in 1822, expressed great admiration for Hogg's description of the arrival of Mary Queen of Scots in his poem The Queen's Wake, published in 1813. So Hogg knew what was going to happen at the point of writing this. He knew that the king was going to be arriving at Leith and to be escorted to Holyrood by various dignitaries, the White Rod, the Herald Trumpeters, and the Lord Lion Depute. And then there would be a levee at Holyrood Palace, a hunt ball, and a Caledonian ball, with real-life props, including, we have it represented here, the rediscovered Honours of Scotland. £3.50 that cost, I believe, so it's a real deal.
No expenses spared.
Yeah, no expenses spared. And they'd also summoned selected Highlanders and their tales to the capital. And when you think about it, it's happening 2 years after the 1820 insurrection in Scotland. So it was a chance for Scotland really to affirm its loyalty to the new monarch, who'd recently returned from touring his kingdoms in Hanover and Ireland. So this is the kind of scene that Hogg's playing with, the pomp that he knew was going to be happening, the cast of people representing Scotland's past. And what he does here is take, in some ways, a more nuanced view than the official events we're going to do. And there's also an expression, I think, of discomfort with the way 1822 was being staged. I think those of us who've come across it before are familiar with the image of George IV in his pink tights and his kilt. Royal Stuart Tartan, also visual aid there. And Hogg did have an eye to getting a pension, a Royal Literary Society pension, so there's an element of inveigling himself here too, but I think there's a lot of ambiguity in the script. I hope it'll come through, but in some ways it's quite fast, so just listen, and maybe, you know, walking home you'll be able to reflect on it, but it's quite a fast moving script, as you'll find out. He was also using models to work with in terms of poetry and songs. It's a poetic play. So something like Scott's Carol Now the King Come, which used the Jacobite air that Ramsay and Burns had written to, but Scott gave it Hanoverian sentiments. Scotland's got her king again, welcome Royal Geordie. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got Alexander Rogers' Sonny Now the King's Come, which was published anonymously in the London Examiner, that says, kneel and kiss his gracious bum, Sonny Now the King's Come. So there was a lot of ambivalence towards that visit. And Hogg, I think, comes somewhere in between Scott and Rogers, as you'll see. Something close to Galt, who also published on this a poem called Gathering of the West. Just to put the final touches to setting the scene for you, in 1822, Hogg was already quite an established writer. His Queen's Wake had made his name in 1813, and in 1818 he published his Brownie of Bodsbeck and Other Tales, with its central tale of the Covenanters. So, Covenanters here. In 1821 he'd just brought out the second volume of his Jacobite Relics, the Songs of the 15 and 45, and the Jubilee was also written 2 years before his very famous work, The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner, which has crucial scenes set in Arthur's Seat in Holyrood Park, and this play is set in Holyrood Park. So while you're watching, you might like to consider that as the background to it, that Hogg, at the point he was writing this, was interested in the Covenanters, in Jacobitism, and actually ideas around division in Scotland's history. And I think all of these were central to the way that Hogg approached Scottish identity, which we'll see tonight. In a sense, his Scotland is not a harmonious place. The casts we have here are of spirits that represent a contested past. And one of the things I think that struck us all when we were reading it is it's actually quite an angry play. There's a lot of pent-up tension in it. And there's a feeling as well, as the Covenanting sections show, I think, that George IV should appreciate the fact that Scotland is welcoming him. It's not welcoming George IV, it's saying, you know, George IV owes something to this country, and that's what the history reflects. So it's quite a subtle play as well. And I'd like you also to listen out for the word king here, because he uses it in quite ways that invite double readings. So sometimes he's talking about George, and overtly he's always talking about George, but there are moments where it's likely that he's talking about Charlie. And just to give you a hint of things to come, there's a lot of allusions to water, and you know that thing about Charlie is the king over the water. Well, that's kind of embedded in the play. We have the Queen of the Ocean here with us, so she'll tell you more about that. So I think the other thing I would say that really struck us in the reading was that the songs were really, really good, and I'm going to pass over to Kirsteen to explain why we thought that.
Thanks, Val, and thank you all for coming. As Val said, this is we've been talking. She and I have been talking about this for quite some time, and we're very much hoping that we could get some kind of performance, even just the kind of performance we're going to do this evening, in 1822, so that we hadn't missed the opportunity of marking this, and also just to get a chance. Reading it on the page is nothing in comparison to hearing it, and as is the case with pieces for performance. But as Val said, you know, the songs are really important here. So I just wanted to say a little bit about the songs before we go to the masque itself. And it's worth bearing in mind that Hogg does call this a Scottish masque. And being typically Hogg uses the spelling M-A-S-K. You can see it on the title page there, rather than the rather more courtly and you know, suave French spelling. But it's worth us, I think, remembering that the definition of a masque, and this is the Oxford English Dictionary's definition, is a form of courtly dramatic entertainment, often richly symbolic, in which music and dancing played a substantial part, costumes, I have to just draw attention to my tiara, costumes and stage machinery tended to elaborate, and the audience might be invited to contribute to the action or the dancing. Now we're in a tight space. Dancing's maybe a health and safety issue, but we are going to ask you to hum along with some of the songs. As Val noted already, Hogg's well known as a songster by this time. The Queen's Week, his big long narrative poem, is a singing competition. One of my students once referred to it as well, it's kind of like the X Factor. And I said, yes, it is. A 3-night competition held in Holyrood Palace for the arrival of Mary Queen of Scots back to Scotland. And a chance for Hogg to show off all his songs and ballads that he had on his shelf and wanted to give an opportunity to share. But he'd also published a collection of songs, The Forest Minstrel, 3 years before that when he arrived in Edinburgh, songs by himself, songs by his pals, and in 1819 and 1821, as Val mentioned, he'd been commissioned to pull together these major collections of Jacobite relics, Jacobite songs, still really the major repository of Jacobite songs that we have in Scotland to this day. And Hogg quotes directly from one of them on the title page. But I will sing a rantin sang that day our king comes o'er the water, which also alludes to the fact, as Val was saying, that's obviously for Charlie, but he's using it on the front page of a play for George IV, and that's very much a recurring theme. That's actually the first song that you're going to hear is set to the tune When the King Comes O'er the Water. So that's, again, Hogg nodding to his Jacobite relics. And it's the first of 8 songs you'll hear in what's a relatively short piece. And a lot of the tunes you'll recognise. It's unlikely you'll have heard the texts, unless you know Hogg's work really well and you know this masque already. But you will recognise some of the tunes. So the Genius of the Ocean woos the new monarch arriving, singing of the beauties of the land and the ocean, to one of the most popular of 18th century tunes, the Birks of Inverness. And the fairies then all arrive in the fairy dell to a song set to another of the most popular of 18th century tunes, the Broom of the Cowden Knowes. So you'll all know that, you'll all recognise that. Then in the middle of the masque, when Hogg again is trying to kind of forge connections between George IV and an older lineage of Scottish monarchs, he uses the tune Over the Border, that has become famous already in his first little book of songs that he publishes in Edinburgh in 1819 called The Border Garland. It's a love song he writes for that tune at that time. Next, you'll hear the great Sheena Wellington sing Killiecrankie. That's a song again sung by the fairies in the play, but suggests that the Scots are actually probably more willing to fight for George than they ever were for Charlie. And unsurprisingly, the genius of the Gael is not one bit impressed with that song. But the genius of the Gael has her moment, because song number 6, which sits right in the middle of her major speech in the play, is set to the haunting Gaelic tune MacGregor na Rúra. And even although the Hogg text here is trying again to forge the connections between the Stuarts and the Hanoverians. And the last song before the Cayley final is set to another beautiful tune called The Bonnie Dairymaid. It's a tune that Burns uses for the banks of Devon, so some of you might know it from there. It's a really haunting Bonnie tune, and in this case it's used at the moment the Covenanter is having her moment. And it's really a song about kind of ethereal spirituality, immortality, devotion, are words that are used in that text. Audience participation, we will nod to you. There are a couple of songs with a wee bit of a chorus. Even if you don't know the tune, just give us something, will you? Just give us some kind of grunting or whatever you want to do. But the last song is a bit of a hoolie. It's a very uplifting kind of dance tune called Go to the Kye with Me, not to be confused with Hogg's beautiful When the Kye Comes Hame, which immediately makes you think of, actually, as Val herself has written, this is a tune that's very like the tune Wood and Married and All, which was the tune Hogg used for his very first song, or the song he claims was his first song, Donald MacDonald, which is all about fighting off Napoleon at Fort William. So something again that's quite topical for the early 19th century, so do join in when it comes. That's it.
Okay, well, with no further ado, we'll bring on our cast, our set of Scottish geniuses or ghosts who've come together at Holyrood to welcome George IV of Scotland. And first of all, we have the perfectly cast genius of Holyrood, aka of the Palace, the one and only Sheena Weller.
Yay!
And then you've already met the genius of the ocean, Kirsteen McCue, and various of us will be in attendance to Kirsteen later on as our sea nymphs. So, Kirsteen McCue. And then, bringing a bit of literary glamour to the occasion, the well-known novelist and now Queen of the Fairies, A.J. Close.
Yeah.
And another lady who really needs no introduction, but again is absolutely perfectly cast as the genius of the Gael with her attendant Highland spirit. And it is, again, the one and only Delina.
Yeah.
Over at the side here, we have our musical director, who is also Genius of the West, and will be attended for the night by spirits of the Covenanters, and that is Joe Miller. And as Archie Campbell, the King's officer, who could it be but the Scottish Poetry Library's director, who will keep all the spirits in check with great effectiveness, Asif Khan. And I'm going to be filling in at various points. So we are going to start now, and I'll just change slides. The first scene is set on a romantic dell on Arthur's Seat, with a view of the palace and Calton Hill. Bells, clarions, and various instruments of music are heard at a distance. An echo repeats part of each strain. Genius of the Palace.
Why all this commotion on land and on ocean? This shouting and knelling in my ancient dwelling? The smiles so triumphant on cheeks that were laden, the proud step of youth and the bustle of maiden, this joy in the desolate heart of Dunedin. O Echo, great spirit of rock and of forest, who loves to sleep sound where our griefs are the sorest, but now at the din round yon gaudy caravel, thou shakes thy old sides at the rout and the revel. invisible mimic whose home is the nearest, awake and repeat me the strains that thou hearest. Bless thee, old echo, full high is thy merit, thou eyeless, aimless, bodiless spirit, thou cliff-born changeling, without guide, an ear, a tongue, and nothing beside. A raven this moment thou croak'st in thy crew, the next thou a sounding, breaking wave, the next a maiden singing of love, and the next a proud eagle yelling above a stormy wind, or a clarion that rings in honour of heroes and mighty kings. Oh, hast thou neither voice nor spell nor fairy to send forth and tell? Aye, all this clamour, tumult and din, my ancient palace rolls within, where I have slumbered in listless mood since the days of the martyr, Charles the Good.
Hail to the land of the pine and the oak, the land of the loyal heart in danger. Blessed be her halls and her lordly walls, again to enclose their royal stranger. Hail to the guest she loves the best, whose father's blood her freedom bought her. The fairies they shall hail the day that Albin's king came o'er the water.
Words of soothe the fairy sings, the son of our ancient honoured kings is come his father's home to see, the topmost stem of our royal tree, that from dark shades its head uprears. God bless the son of 1,000 years. His foot's on our shore, on our mountains, his eyes departed shades. Arise, arise! The royal presence sets you free. This night be the Spirit's Jubilee. From sea and from strand, from lake and from land, from forest and fountain and dark healthy mountain, come gather you without delay, for much is to do here, the break of day. Here comes the genius of the wave, with the sea nymphs of a coral cave. I'll hide me behind this lady fern, the strains of the great deep to learn and learn.
Come hither, my maidens, and to me tell if you became your stations well. Through weltering wave and land gale strong, as the king of the ocean came bounding along, fair Lady Foambell, freakish and vain, say me your tendons o'er firth and o'er main.
Mistress, you know how, a year agone, I sailed to the winds and summoned them on, to toss 'em and heave 'em o'er breaker and wave, as high as the mountain, as low as the cave. For I knew that the king of the sea would not shrink from the cup that our millions are doomed to drink. And I screamed with joy when without dread he saw the waves break over his head. But I was punished, and mistress mine, your high ward was too condign.
Fair nymph, if well thou now hast sped, I'll bind a garland round thy head of the emerald green and the ruby red.
My queen, I judged there were greater crimes than giving my prince a touch of the times, so I whispered to him in haughty tone what element he journeyed on. But well I knew the sacred charge, and gave the ship to bound at large, and lovely was her meteor sway as she rainbowed the waves on her polar way. Old ocean smiled through her silvery foam as she bore her king to his ancient dome, and, oh my queen, hadst thou but seen when his eye first found the ochil's green, how it beamed with the heart's own mollient dew, as loud he called to his steersman's true, "Is yon the land of the clans I view?" he turned it next on this very dell, round which the rocks fantastic swell, on castled pile of ancient time, and he started at each scene sublime, and then it saw, the last of all, the beauteous Mary's ancient hall, and the teardrop fell as his thoughts did trace the fate of Stuart's hapless race, the flower of the world that flourished here, and of all her comely race so fair, the last and the loveliest too was gone, and the royal wanderer roamed alone. These were his secret thoughts, I ween, for a look so expressive I never had seen. I loved him and blessed him, and shamed to outbrave, I stood my stand on the main of a wave, and bursting away with the breeze that blew, I moistened its cheek with my body of dew, for I longed in a frolic of amorous mirth to kiss in the gleam of a Scottish firth, king of the ocean and isles of the earth.
Fair Lady Foambill, turn thee behind, thou art not a dame to my sovereign's mind. Come, Fireflake, forth, take up the word, say how you served the ocean's lord.
My queen, I sparkled as bright as either, and was the brightest stars in the upper heaven, and I flashed in 1,000 shivers of flame on the sides of the bark as she onward came, and when the sun rose, bright and low, I gleamed a radiance round her brow, and I drew my sovereign's manly eye, that looked with joy on mine.
Turn, tiny nymph, behind thy queen, since thou hast toy to sovereign been. I'll grant thee a lover, and he shall be from the fountains of the Zuyder Zee. Come ripple and rainbow, gurgle and gale, say how ye sped with royal sail.
Oh, mistress, we dyed the breast of the tides with purple and green and gold beside, the heaven above and the heaven below. We painted in autumn's boldest glow, and arched the sea with aerial bow. And still our liquid song we sung, as the ship on the green wave veered and swung, and aye we decked her gilded prow with stomager of the purest snow. My maidens spared not toil of our pain, to please the king of the mighty main.
Go ripple and sing to the rushing keel, go gurgle and growl in the fisherman's creel, go gale and away o'er thy wild billow roam, and rosy rainbow break and go home. But ere we leave the sweet land breeze, let us frame a song our king to please, and gladden his heart when he skims again alongst our lubric bright domain, and be it a Caledonian lay, to bind his heart to this land for aye. of all. Bring these, thou breeze of old Albin's reign, and welcome thee thou to the King of the Main. Come, let us away, my maidens gay, 100 fathoms from the day, where the breeze never sweeps, and the ripple never creeps, and everlasting twilight sleeps. For yonder approaches the fairy queen, the genius of the lowlands green. With elf and fay and trim array, they're coming their long devours to pay.
Sound the bell in the fairy dell as the dew falls on the lea. For though this day has been long away, its dear welcome to me. Say, Laura, Laura, fairies day. Say, Laura, shore and down. For the crown of love shall firmer stand, lays on a manly brow. Gather, my elfin shoe, gather around your sovereign queen, and say what our gamesome sport shall be during our joyful jubilee. And each must bestow some trifle or toy for the sake of the lowlands, the land of our joy.
Madam, I'll give this darling of men and maidens too my malison.
And so will I.
And so will I.
And so will we all.
Blessed Emmets, why?
Because we were banished by him and his race, and things called knowledge, truth and grace, and sent away on joyless wing, in Lapland's dreary caves to sing, or through Missouri's wilds to go, with the beaver, the bear and the buffalo, where nor poetic gloom breathes from the turf-clad tomb, nor strain sublime floats on the twilight breeze. Oh, when I think upon the border green, when in old time our moonlight danceth been, what desolate and dreary lands are these?
My elfin sly, as well as I, you know the hinges and doors of time, and that there's a hand of mighty command that opens and closes the gates sublime. Then what are we to grumble and growl, but atoms of a magnificent whole? With heart and voice, then let us rejoice in all our fellow creatures good. No crowned man since time began her course of tumult and of blood had heart so sure and hand so pure. And his royal foot, set on Scotia's shore, gives us license to visit our haunts once more. Then fairies, bestow some trifle or toy, for the sake of the lowlands, the land of our joy, the might of kind will to the good and the great will be dearer than splendour and royal state.
I'll give him dreams of glory and bliss.
And I'll steal over and give him a kiss.
I'll give him visions of beauty supreme. And I'll give him something that I shall not name, but it shall both sweet and gratefuller prove in glory or beauty or fairies' love.
I'll give him friendship.
And I'll give him glee.
I'll give him a wreath from the green holland tree.
I'll give him welcome from great and small.
And I'll give him love, the dearest of all.
And I'll bring the balm of the bonny green dale, from every good shepherd in mountain or vale. I'll bring him a blessing, and then, to our guest, we'll sing the wild strain that the border loves best.
Hail, hail to the Son of our Father, the lover of man, of truth and of order. Joy, joy to the land of brown heather, the blood of her bruises come over the border.
Over the border.
The song of the fairy for bonny Queen Mary shall rise to her son in her halls, now no stranger, while with all the brave border is rising in order to show their loved monarch they're ready in danger.
Ready in danger.
Sing, sing, ye green fairies of Lowlandale, none so well known in the joy of a nation round, round from the Cheviot to Lothian Vale, naught is prevailing but proud exultation, proud exultation. Herman and Hayden, to green-coated maiden, to baron and burgher are all in disorder, ranting and singing and bonnets on flinging, because of the lad that's come over the border. Over the border.
That old blind sonneteer seems bent on lending wild accompaniment. Sooth, we are haunted. This deep hold in view of Scotia's palace old is this same night the rendezvous of spirits from the briny ooze, of spirits black and spirits grey and spirits from the north away, where fierce McCullough's legions stern couch in the brake or forest dern. Hide you, fairies, in a flock within the dew cups of the rock, and when I call, away, away, be ready with a border lay. I'll meet this hoary guest alone, this breviture of ages gone, this second-sighted paradigm, the ghost of Ossian he would see. Hail, reverend spirit, whom should I hail?
The guardian genius of the gale. And what lovely stranger meets my eye?
The genius of the border, I. And I have seen thee heretofore, but 'tis now a human age and more. Dost thou remember?
No, it's gone.
It was in April. All alone I found thee wailing in woeful plight, till the clouds around thee moaned outright, and the old grey rocks and trees of the wood at thy complaint wept tears of blood. Dost thou remember?
No, lady, no. But why recall the days of woe to mar the roving spirit bliss in such a jubilee as this?
Because that then, in uncouth rhyme, you mumbled something of this time, of a tartaned king that should appear, the only stem of a house held dear, who should give loyalty its due, and the honours of the gale renew. This I derided with wicked spleen, and high the feud rose us between, till I raised some elves from out the heath to tickle your beard and soothe your wrath. There had been strife some days before, a bloody strife on northern shore, where your proud clans were forced to yield and fly inglorious from the field, and saw their country to their shame wrapped in a flood of roiling flame.
No, not to their shame, injurious dame. I'll stake their honour's loftiest claim upon that day, when Albion's sway was reft from the right hand away and given the left, where none stood fast to help the young and brave, the last of Stuart's line, my people then, a remnant mid a world of men, in peril stood. I joy to tell for whom they rose and whom they fell. That day is past, and well it should, and one is come, I knew it would, in which our names shall higher soar than e'er a nation's fame before. Our King is come, and claims our race in garb and lineament of face, and our lost titles for the right, burnished anew, shall shine more bright. Oh, might I to his ear impart my people's loyalty of heart.
If it is as potent as you say, the rocks will sing it.
Away, away!
Oh, Henry, there's naught but alteration. The men that strove our throne to move and overturn the nation are all come round with wit profound to those they branded fairly, and show more might for George's right than e'er they did for Charlie. The day is past, it was the last of suffering and sorrow, and o'er the men of Northern Glen arose a bright tomorrow. The pibroch ran with Balder clan along the hills of heather, and fresh and strong the thistles throng that had begun to wither. Our sovereign gone, whom we think on as sons and sire regarded, of the plaided north, behold the worth and loyalty rewarded, returned their own and to the throne, bound all their spirits lordly. Now who will stand with dirk and brand, as Donald does for Geordie?
Long may truth thus spread and flourish, and the lawyer-hearted nourish. Principle of fenial seal towards our own ground-danced wheel. Ancient Scotia, leal and true, land of cakes and bonnets blue, of brothers emulous of fame, of Highland and of Lowland name, of their honours jealous, fretful, none so proud, but none so grateful. Thinkest thou, Queen Fairy Dale, to outvoice the tuneful gale? Oi, and Sheikhnta, come appear, Moloch, Halat, and De Beer, Maid and Mother, come along, chant this day my northern song. ancient minstrels gone, spirit guerdon have I none, but oh, what high delight is hearing Scottish strains of loyal bearing. Go hide you in the hair bell, or in the foxglove silken cell, and list what issues from the mouth of froward spirit of the south. And thou from westland dale or hill, leaven of old time distill, latent juices unsubdued, bred of ancient faith and feud. Spirits, rise the loud acclaim for ancient right and feudal name. In dark thorn or rowan tree, hide these spirits cunningly.
The spirits of the west are gone to their rest. Why join they not in our dance and our chorus? They are captious and bold, like their people of old. For us, let us mingle like spirits before us. Say, hold'st thou a guardian's dutiful eye o'er all the dark islands from isle to sky, and over each wild highland mountain and hollow?
No, I watch alone know the grey clan McCullough, the mightiest name, though now in division, that e'er in these islands was broke by collision.
Oh, master, master, whatever betide, here our heads we cannot hide. There are spirits in fern, in flower cup and linn, spirits without and spirits within. There are fairies and brownies and shades Amazonian, of harper and sharper and old Cameronian. And some small as a pygmy, some tall as a steeple. The spirits are all gone as mad as the people. These borderland elves, they hid me begone and prick me with spears of the spider-like bone.
Unseemly thrush, pour forth thy rhymes, and give them a song of the olden times, and then they shall soothe and embrace thee more than thy old form was ever before.
Rise, thou bright sun, o'er the fields of the ocean, still brighter tomorrow than thou rose today. Thou pole star of life and our Father's devotion, in glory ascend thy celestial way. For God of the day, frost smiles toward our duty, commanding the dark clouds afar from thy throne. Thine eye shall behold such an iris of beauty, as bright eye of majesty never been drawn.
Go thy ways, thou minstrel hoar, the elves shall trouble thee no more.
Look, Highland shade, along the glade. Who's this comes next to serenade, with stride severe and brow austere? The very prince of churls is here. This froward guest, of all the rest, must be the genius of the west. Hail, upright spirit.
Hail to thee.
Not a word of courtesy.
No, you, I ween, are vile sectarians, scoffers, or latitudinarians. I hold no communings with thee.
Why comest thou here with look morose, in such a night of general glee, when bounden spirits are set free? Comest thou against this royal guest, to enter thy sublime protest, and with some act of abjuration confound the spirits of the nation? We know thy stubborn flock's misdeeds, and enmity gainst crowned heads.
Madam, thou art most wondrous free. Then in return take this from me. Thou art a fickle, false believer, and he that told thee a deceiver. Not crowns or sceptres we gainsay, but tyrant pride and despot sway. And let me tell you and attest, ye spirits of ungracious jest,
that not a corner of our isle has backed the truth with rank and file as we have done, still showing face for Brunswick's firm and faithful race. Therefore, beneath yon starry sheen, I claim the first place on the green, and with my followers to maintain the precedence on earthly plane, then grant us without strife or cavil to move the first in royal revel, or by John Welch, though it be late, I'll make drumclog of Arthur's seat.
God's molly, sure this thing's possessed. The bully of the broken west. Would he oppose and stand before the matchless might of Donald Moore? If so he dares, then I'll let him see once more the terrible Dundee. His phantom steed once more shall paw, once more the claymore he shall draw. Then where will be your stern array? I see your look and hear you say, good morrow, ghosts, I must away, up to the cloch to moan and pray.
And masters, shall it e'er be said that my grey hose and marlent plaid must once give place, though but in jest, to the wild north or canting west, we who for ages dared to stand the bulwark of our native land, when all unmoved your tribes afar scarce heard the rumours of the war, then for your rights through fire and flood we soaked the fells with foeman's blood. Give precedence. I claim the order for my broad bonnets of the border.
What? Leave the guardians of the sea, the last in this great jubilee. Those who have guarded Britain's coast against such proud aspiring host, and in whose surging mountain waves her fierce invaders found their graves. Ever since you quaked at the bravado of the invincible Armado, unto this day, who kept you free? I say, the genius of the sea. The right hand's mine, to this you're bound. I throw my pledge and keep my ground.
I'll not give in, by high heaven's might. MacDonald always keeps the right.
Step forth, my host of saintly fame. Show your fair faces without shame. Now, dost thou think I'll yield the palm? Stern opposition is the balm of these, my followers. Turn thee here and view their visages severe, and then say, who dares treat with banters the spirits of old Covenanters?
Yeah.
These are the shades of men who rose for Scotland's right and dared oppose tyrannic sway with sword and pen, 'gainst all the wrath of wicked men. The nation's rights, sacred and civil, these wrenched both from man and devil, and with their blood on fen and field their holy testimonies sealed. Then brag not us in vain palavers, or with the ghost of guilty clavers, or by the sword of William Cleland, bring spirits lowland, spirits highland, and I'll disperse the bloody Neros by these few souls of Westland heroes. I stamp my claim before high heaven, I write it with the dews of even, blood of the skies here sprinkled down, for now we have none of our own, that Westland spirits have the right to marshal first in sovereign's sight. His is the righteous rule for which we ventured all and suffered much. Speak out, ye ghosts of Brumley feature, dumbness was not your earthly nature.
We have strong proofs of mortal frame, a gallant band that claims our name, the Cameronians. For the faith they'll scale you vagrants with their breath.
Our birthright we give up to none for mess of pottage. Ours alone it is, and now here's for the strife.
I'm ready to lay down my life.
The Bible be your target then, and wear it like Breadalban's men, or these bold rogues, the Red MacGregors, spread on the arm with mystic figures. Your swords be gleam of fiery levin, drawn streaming from the forge of heaven, and through the moonlight of the hill, o'er shade and shingle, rock and rill, we'll drive this herd of haughty jeerers like silly sheep before their shearers.
Rise, Highland shades, we'll them defy. When yield MacDonald, then shall I.
Rise, every fay and border elf. The land of Bruce will right itself.
Hold off, I say! Hold off! Hold off! Keep the peace in the king's name! Hold off!
Who are you, sir?
Oh, God be blessing you all. She be the garden genius of the High Street, Edinburgh, and has more nor enough to be doing without coming out amongst the cliffs and the crags and the mountains to be contending with madcaps. God damn, is it not a bold matter that men and devils should have all gone mad at the very same time? The gentles are gone mad, and the poor people are gone mad. The wives are all gone mad, and the wee bairnies, the maddest of all. But is it not an awesome thing that the very bogles of the hill should have risen out of the earth and all gone mad too? Keep the peace there, my ghostly masters. Sure, there was never a good gentleman beloved like this. Every living creature in the whole land, visible and invisible, is in commotion, contending who shall be rendering him the grandest homage, and who has the best right and condescension of him. God bless us. What a hobble show in a hurly-burly, with clans and commoners. And among the rest, there be the brave and the bonny Campbells, with the bee on the shudder of the arm. Whilk shows the master to be no great scholar, for it should have been a C. Och, that she had them all here, for all the other risings, this of the clans of the bogles be the worst. But it better to flee fools than fight with them. Come, my brave friends, there shall none of you be first or last, for you shall just form a round robin about our master and king, and be great and strong, and a mighty bulwark about him. And with the eye of man can neither be seeing the one nor the other. Come, I will form you in a ring, and you shall be dancing o' the mean away, and singing the first gentleman of the whole world to his good sleep.
Pray, brave sir, what shall we sing?
Och, be singing the fine song, a good turn needs but a beginning. Let it be Scottish. True Scottish.
We'll round about all together the way that the wily moon goes, and I will join her while chorus and sing our guest to his repose. For was nae will-worthy blessings, and was nae will-worthy free, and was nae will-worthy blessings will come to the north to me. There's some that can rule with discretion, there's some that can stoop to the law, there's some that can wield a whole nation, but why is it can't do them all? For was nae will-worthy blessings, and was nae will-worthy free, and was nae will-worthy blessings what come to the north to me.
We'll dance till the gout shaker tremble, the gow and the harebell say blue, and warna for great Archie Campbell, we wagna leave track on the dew.
And was nae will-worthy blessings, and was nae will-worthy free, and was nae will-worthy blessings what come to the north to me.
The night when the suchin mere sweetly o'er hills of the Beather and Ling, the stars they are shining there brightly, and all for the sake of our King.
For was nae will-worthy blessings, and was nae will-worthy free, and was nae will-worthy blessings what the north to me. Oh, well, may the land of the thistle have joy in her bonny bree. She'll never forget the blithe bustle and life o' her grand jubilee. And was they worthy blessings, and was they worthy three, and was they worthy blessings for comes to the north to me.
Hey! Now scale out your ways, like good bairns, and we're much obliged to you for your good intentions. Ride away on the swirl of the wind there, and mark horses with the wee windows graze. And scamper off like many a fireflock there, or you may climb up your ling ladders, made of the beams of the moon. Good heavens, isn't it an awesome thing that the very teals and bogles are come out the meadow horse to kick up sick a stir on this great occasion? But in the King's name, I dismiss you! And you, and you, and you! Allow yourselves! And you!